Hey everybody, just wanted to give you a quick heads up before you watch this video. I actually pre-taped this before the news broke that the Petitos are actually going after the Laundries in a civil lawsuit, blaming them for knowing what Brian did, trying to get him out of the country. If you want to learn more about what they're doing, you can watch this video. I'll put an iCard right up here. But I pre-taped this video because I'm on vacation this week, and I still wanted to give you this interview with Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI agent, brings so much information here. And now with this new news about the Laundries being sued, it makes me wonder, could they have been involved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Without further ado, here's the piece. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and I'm so excited to have guest, retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer here with us today. Welcome to, back to the show, Jennifer.
Hi, how's it going, Andy?
It's going great. I'm so honored to have you back here, and a really interesting theory and investigation that's happening right now. We got the full autopsy report about Brian Laundrie. It seems like we're moving on from this case. It's over. However, you noticed something in this report. Some others have as well, but you really were out there talking about a point in this that really did make a lot of us scratch our heads. The fact that Brian was using his non-dominant hand when his body was found and unaliving himself, as we call it here, to avoid certain keywords and things. But this is a very interesting theory as we go through, because this might imply that someone else was there holding the weapon. This is a big, allegation or thought or theory. So I wanted to bring you on to discuss this in general. Before we even get there, though, I just want to tease where we're going. Overall, do you feel like we are getting the clarity that we, needed in this case?
Well, I think slowly, as more facts are revealed, people are feeling more comfortable with what happened. However, this autopsy report, which is 47 pages long, really brought in some more details that people didn't know about, exactly what he had on scene, the specific scientific proof that he's dead unequivocally, because a lot of people still wondered that. So this report provided a lot of information.
I mean, so there have been theories. I know Dog the Bounty Hunter was on our show a while back, wondering, hey, this could all be staged. He could still be still be alive and out there. With your experience, that would be incredibly hard to fake at this point. Do you feel very confident that this is case closed? Brian Laundrie is dead. Can we confirm that today?
I like how you said that. The case is closed in terms of Brian Laundrie being alive. His dental records were checked. That is the gold standard. They have his teeth. And then beyond that, they went another step. They had the forensic anthropologist look at the DNA within his bone structure and verify it's him. Brian Laundrie is no longer with us.
Yeah, so any conspiracy theorists out there who are still trying to promote that's just kind of impossible to even figure out. So I'm glad we can have an official person here help us to really put that out. Now, where there is still a theory, and I think a valid one that you bring up, is this part on page 5 of the report. So do you want to break down what you're seeing here, what we're looking at, and why this is telling?
Yes, I mean, for me, like everybody else, I thought we were at the complete end of this case. And as I read the autopsy report, my jaw dropped when I saw this paragraph. And the reason is, as a firearms instructor, as an avid shooter myself, it is, I won't say impossible, very, very unlikely. And with my experience with suicides, homicides in the law enforcement arena for 28 years, people typically do not put a gun to their head to commit the most important shot they are ever going to make with their off or non-dominant hand. I went back to a lot of footage of Brian Laundrie at this point, looking to see if perhaps he was ambidextrous. And then also looking at Cassie's statement. Is he right-handed? Is he left-handed? Cassie says he was right-handed. But I wanted to confirm for myself with photographs and videos and whatnot. I can find him doing nothing except holding a peach with his left hand. When it came to cutting an apple, right-handed. Playing an instrument, right-handed. Writing, right-handed. And so I was bothered by this. Now, I have 3 possible theories, if you will. One is that he truly was ambidextrous, and for some reason it wasn't caught on film or on photograph. I don't think that is extremely likely, but it's possible. Another is that he chose to hold an important picture of perhaps he and Gabby or something else, his notebook or something. Couldn't have been his notebook because that was found someplace else, but something in his hand, and then chose to use his non-dominant hand to commit this shot, or that he was assisted in his suicide. I want to make it clear that from my experience, this was not a homicide. The report makes it very clear that the damage to the left side of the head showed proximity and was indicative of a suicide. Having said that, often people who are going to commit suicide have assistance. They have somebody steady the gun as they hold the trigger, pull the trigger. They steady the gun and have somebody else pull the trigger because it's such an important decision that they've made, and they don't want to have an error happen where at the last minute they change their mind and now they're just damaged in some catastrophic way. So when somebody makes this decision, sometimes they need assistance to go through with it.
And it's interesting because you're right. If I'm going to do this, I'm using my right hand because I'm right-handed. It makes I can already feel the difference. And audience, do it at home. I feel so much less confident with this side. I do. Like, could I do it? Sure, but I can just feel a weakness right as I lift this version up compared to like the confidence that I feel in my right hand. So it is a very interesting discovery here. But where I get sort of torn is like this idea I've never realized that people assist. Like what does that mean? So again, we're speculating, but I don't want to say the parents, but somebody could have been there to sort of help him with his decision and just sort of steady it out. That is something that's common in your experience in suicide cases?
Yes, it's something that happens. And, you know, when somebody is committed to do this, they want to make sure that they do it. And oftentimes a loved one, a parent, is understanding of that for whatever the reason. It occurs sometimes when people have terminal illnesses. Sometimes people are mentally ill and they just don't want to live anymore, and their family and loved ones, sometimes there's somebody that is willing to assist. In this case, Brian Laundrie was faced with life in prison, and I think a case could be made that, you know, that's why he chose suicide. He did not want to have life in prison.
I mean, do you share the same theory that it was kind of odd that the parents knew where the body was? I mean, does that offer any additional speculation in your mind that they could be, you know, potential suspects, and it would make sense they have motive in assisting and how they would have known where he was?
Well, when you take the totality of the circumstances from the beginning of some of the parents' actions, they are very interesting. For an example, as you may know, the car that was left at the reserve, they came and took. Now, if I thought my son was on the run, or if I knew he was no longer alive, I could see taking that car away. Those are the only two reasons you would take the car. If you thought he was alive in the reserve, you wouldn't take his only means of departing the reserve. So that detail always bothered me as well. Also, them not reporting for days him being gone. Why? Also, the fact they knew he left his cellular phone and other personal articles that people would need unless they were going on the run or they were committing suicide, that they would need to function. So if you add all of that up, and then the last item, which was very concerning, was they beelined exactly where he was. Now remember, this is 2 to 3 miles, is my understanding, into the reserve, about 40-minute walk. This is my understanding from what I've read. that is a difficult place to find unless you know exactly where you're going. And remember, the FBI, law enforcement, cadaver dogs, no one else could find him.
Right. I mean, they keep saying it was the water. The water kept it away. I mean, do you feel like that's a valid excuse?
I feel like it is a definite valid excuse or explanation as to why they were hindered in finding him. I think they were probably looking at other parts of the park as the water was filling up, and then it, So yes, I think it was very much so a contributing factor, but I still struggle with the fact that the parents went there the day after, I believe, the reserve was opened back up, and went exactly to where everything was at.
It kind of felt like they went with a purpose, right?
Yeah, I'm not one to buy into coincidences. In my background, I've seen very few coincidences. Coincidences are facts that lead to joining what happened together. So I struggle with this whole scenario that the parents just knew exactly where he was.
And the report, does it it does sort of tell us when, right? We can deduce how this was done pretty quickly after he left, correct? He wasn't in that reserve for long, based on what we know about finding the body.
Do you mean in terms of when he would have
Yeah, when
died?
would someone have assisted, even, or when would he have done it himself?
Well, I use the timeline of the facts involved. When they went and got the car, to me, at that point, he was gone. And then again, remember, they took even time after that to report, which I've also said is very suspicious. Here you have your son returning without his fiance, and he goes into the park without his items. He packs up a few things. Why would you go retrieve his car? Not to belabor this point, but it is such a significant point, because at that point, I believe he didn't need it anymore, and they knew he didn't need it anymore. So I think that fact leads to a more specific timeline.
I know there was something else you wanted to mention about the gun, correct?
Yes. So Andy, the gun that was used by Brian Laundrie was not a semi-automatic handgun, which has a very light trigger pull, a very short trigger pull. A revolver, which is what he used, has an extremely long, comparatively, trigger pull, and it requires so much more poundage of pressure. So not only would he have to have the dexterity to hold it up and to pull the trigger, he has to have the strength in that trigger finger, in that hand, to actually pull back quite a large length.
Which again, as like having the less dominant, again, guys, try it. If you're right-handed or vice versa, I would not want to take that risk with my less dominant hand, knowing this is such an important shot. So that's a fascinating part of it. That's a big part of it. Yeah, because that gun would be very hard to pull.
Yeah, it's very hard to pull, and it's not an easy gun to shoot. When you shoot a semi-automatic, boy, it's just downrange and you will hit your target. A revolver is not that case. It's much more difficult to control and to shoot. Huge recoil, big poundage on your trigger pull, and a long trigger pull.
There was just always fun at all that the sort of laughing it up with the agents as they were sort of on the quest as well. I just think everything about them sort of was off, but I think we all sort of knew that. That's what sort of the appeal to a lot of people, why they were so invested in this case, because they knew something was off. If they were to come forward tomorrow and say, yeah, we assisted, is there a crime there? Is there anything that they could be held responsible for in your mind?
Well, certainly no federal crime. The FBI is out of this. The FBI, as far as I know, has conducted their investigation and concluded it by the release of that paper that said so. However, this could be something that could possibly meet a state or local crime. It would be something that would need to be investigated by the Northport Police Department.
So as we wrap up this case, because it is coming to an end, and I know it seems the Petitos are moving on as well. They're started a shelter here in Florida, and they have focused on the foundation. It doesn't seem like they're going to be pressing charges or trying to pursue it further. We'll see if anything changes. But in your mind, as we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to see happen? Do you feel like this is now case closed, even with this sort of oddity in the report? What are your sort of final thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, two things. One, for me, because of seeing this autopsy report, whereas I thought I would have a definitive end to the case, I don't, because I will be bothered by this if it is not fully investigated. And I don't know if there's any way to investigate it, because the evidence is gone. It's gone because his body was too damaged to really know. In other words, we can't see gunshot residue. The parents aren't going to cooperate. They're not going to take a polygraph. They're not going to speak about it. So we will probably likely never know. The other issue is, recall, there is civil litigation out there. There's litigation concerning the property, concerning the notebook, concerning pictures, concerning other things. And that's in civil litigation right now. And I would not be surprised if we see more civil litigation in this case.
Interesting. So not yet over in your eyes, and I know it's not over for a lot of people who are following this case as to the whys. Do you think the parents will ever speak up? You've followed this pretty closely. You've profiled things, and you clearly paid attention to them. Do you think they seem like the type that at some point could want to cash in or just say the truth, or do you think they're going to take this to the grave?
I think the Laundries and Mr. Bertolino, I think yes. I would not be surprised at all. I am going to go to some case that's in the media right now, is the Scott Peterson case and Lacey Peterson, and look at all of the books, memoirs, television shows, made for TV movies. It has been completely put out there in the media for money. And I think, sadly, the Laundries, excuse me, and Mr. Bertolino could choose that path as well. It would not surprise me.
Can Bertolino sell that story himself as a lawyer? Is that allowed? That's a fascinating. I didn't even think of that.
Not without their approval, not without the Laundries.
But he could negotiate it and sort of push them in that direction.
Sure.
Yeah. That makes more sense. Well, this is fascinating. I appreciate you being here. A nice summary to sort of recap things. I know a lot of my viewers still are sort of wondering what happened. Will we ever get these answers? I hope we do. In the meanwhile, please follow Jennifer over on Twitter is the best place to find you, correct? Over here at Coffindaffer FBI on Twitter if you want to follow her. Anything else you want to mention or send our viewers to? No, just appreciate being on. And, I wish we could have more finality. But we don't. We don't, sadly, but I appreciate you being here offering this. And so I also appreciate you giving us some valid, he's dead, guys. He's dead. Now, there might have been something still off about how he died, but it seems like most of it has been sort of solved in that regard. So let's hopefully put to bed those conspiracy theories. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the bell for all alerts to get alerts. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't want to tell you, so smash the like button and leave a comment down below to help the engagement of this video. And stay tuned for more content here on Popcorn Planet. Thanks so much for watching.